Horror films force us to face our fears. Today we have a selection of films that reveal this genre in their own way, from psychological horror to cosmic nightmare. Let's figure out what makes them truly creepy. Pearl is a stylish, psychological horror and a prequel to X, in which director Ty West reveals the story of the future killer's youth. The plot centers on a girl named Pearl who lives on a farm with an abusive mother and a bedridden father. Dreaming of fame and a great future, she gradually sinks into madness when the surrounding reality destroys her hopes. The film is stylized as a classic Hollywood film of the 1930s, creating a contrast between bright, colorful pictures and a dark, disturbing atmosphere. Mia Goth gives an amazing acting job, especially in a long monologue closer to the end. Unlike the dynamic X, Pearl is a slow but creepy exploration of a broken psyche, where fear is born not from external threats, but from the depths of the human soul. This is a rare case when a prequel enriches the original, making the story even more frightening and tragic.
I want to be loved from as many people as possible. But truth is, I'm not really a good person.
A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is an unusual indie horror film that combines vampire mythology, noir, and art house cinema. Director Anna Lily Amirpour creates a hypnotic atmosphere, immersing the viewer in the black and white world of the fictional Iranian town of Bad City, filled with loneliness and violence. The plot centers on a mysterious vampire girl who hunts wicked men, but at the same time makes an unexpected connection with a young man, Arish. The film avoids classic genre cliches, instead offering a meditative, almost poetic narrative in which music, visual style, and silence work to build tension. It is more of an existential drama than a traditional horror film, and despite its slow pace, it has a unique charm. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is a vampire film in the spirit of Jim Jarmusch, where fear and beauty merge into one, creating an unforgettable viewing experience. The Autopsy of Jane Doe is an atmospheric and tense horror that keeps the viewer in constant suspense. The plot unfolds in a morgue, where forensic experts, a father and son, receive the body of an unidentified girl. At first glance, it is completely intact, but the autopsy reveals terrifying anomalies, and inexplicable phenomena begin to occur in the morgue. Director André Øvredal masterfully builds up fear, creating a sense of a closed space where horror creeps up gradually. The film stands out for its original concept and a subtle balance between medical realism and supernatural horror. Unlike standard jump scares, here the fear is built on atmosphere and mystery, and the solution to the mystery of Jane Doe turns out to be dark and unexpected. The Autopsy of Jane Doe is a rare example of a chamber horror that scares without unnecessary effects, relying on a strong script and tense production.
Dad?
Incantation is a Taiwanese mockumentary horror film that immerses the viewer in a sinister world of ancient curses and religious rituals. The film follows Lee Jongnan, a woman trying to save her daughter from a supernatural curse that she accidentally brought on herself 6 years ago. The plot is presented in a non-linear manner, alternating footage from the past and present, which enhances the atmosphere of mystery and anxiety. Incantation skillfully uses mockumentary elements to create a sense of realism and involve the viewer in a frightening ritual that seems to go beyond the screen. Unlike standard curse films, the fear here is built on deep psychological tension and the inevitability of horror. The film became the highest-grossing Taiwanese horror film, and its final scene leaves a strong aftertaste. This is a great movie for those who love scary stories with a mystical atmosphere and original presentation. Eden Lake is a brutal and realistic thriller that leaves a deep emotional mark. The plot centers on a young couple, Jenny and Steve, who go on a romantic vacation by the lake. However, their solitude turns into a nightmare when they encounter an aggressive group of teenagers. What begins as an ordinary conflict quickly escalates into a fight for survival, where the ruthlessness and sadism of the attackers are shocking in their realism. Director James Watkins skillfully builds tension, showing not just a horror but a social commentary on violence, class differences, and the degradation of youth. The ending of the film is heavy and hopeless, which only increases its impact. Eden Lake is one of the darkest films in the genre of survival horror, which is difficult to forget. It is a brutal but believable story, proving that true horror may not be supernatural, but quite real. The Devil's Candy is an atmospheric horror with elements of psychological thriller and heavy metal that stands out from the typical films about demonic influence.
What's going on?
The plot centers on artist Jesse, who moves into a new house with his family. Soon he begins to hear strange voices that influence his work, and at the same time, a former resident of the house appears in their lives, a mentally unstable man possessed by satanic forces. The film by director Sean Byrne not only scares with its mystical component, but also reveals the theme of art, obsession, and parental love. The soundtrack with heavy music perfectly complements the tense atmosphere, and the camera work creates a sense of disturbing inevitability. Unlike standard horror films about the possession of evil, The Devil's Candy offers a subtle balance between creepy scenes and deep symbolism, turning it into a stylish and memorable film.
Look at this.
Color Out of Space is a psychedelic horror film inspired by a short story by H.P. Lovecraft that turns cosmic horror into a visual nightmare. The plot revolves around the Gardner family, living on a farm whose life is dramatically changed after a meteorite falls. A mysterious color emanating from an alien gradually changes the environment, causing mutations in animals, plants, and even people themselves. Nicolas Cage, as the head of the family, gradually goes mad, and director Richard Stanley masterfully builds an atmosphere of inexplicable horror. The film stands out for its hypnotic visual aesthetic, filled with acid colors and surreal imagery, and its tense, slowly unfolding story creates a sense of hopelessness. This is one of the best Lovecraftian horror films of recent years, in which the fear lies not in the monsters, but in the incomprehensibility of the cosmic threat. Color Out of Space is a real trip into the world of nightmares, which will be especially appreciated by fans of non-standard horror. Thirst is a provocative and stylish horror film by Park Chan-wook that mixes vampire mythology, psychological drama, and elements of dark humor. The plot centers on Catholic priest Sang-hyun, who volunteers for a medical experiment but becomes infected with vampirism after the experiment goes awry. Now he is forced to balance between his thirst for blood and his faith, and soon Tae-ju, an unhappy woman seeking freedom, appears in his life. The film masterfully plays with genre cliches, turning a standard vampire story into a deep, dark, and sensual tragedy. Visually, the film is mesmerizing, from the aesthetics of violence to poetic scenes filled with symbolism. Thirst is a horror film that is frightening not only with its bloody moments, but also with the internal tossing and turning of the characters. This is one of the most unusual vampire films, in which Park Chan-wook demonstrates his signature style: cruel, beautiful, and inevitably tragic. These are the horrors that leave a mark on the memory, whether it's because of the atmosphere, unexpected plot twists, or deep themes. Which one impressed you the most? Or maybe you have your own favorites? Share in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new collections.